Okay. All right, what's up, everybody? It's me, Finch, and I'm here to talk about sigil magic. Sigil magic is basically a form of. Okay. Sigil magic is a really popular form of magic these days. I think it's really popular because it's pretty easy to do. It requires no special rituals, is very compatible with kind of a contemporary idea of what magic is and how magic works. But sigil magic was really early. Sigil magic as we know it now was really created by Austin Osman Spare in like the early 1900s. And it's pretty amazing the work that this guy did. His artwork, first of all, is incredible. When he was 19, his art was shown at the Royal Academy in London, and he was, widely considered to be one of the most talented upcoming artists of the time. But he was also a really talented and fascinating occultist. He rubbed shoulders with Aleister Crowley during the time when Crowley was creating his order of the AA and the OTO. He famously had a big falling out with Crowley and kind of lambasted him in his book, where he kind of implied that a lot of magicians of that time were more interested in wearing fancy costumes and going to fancy parties than they were with actually doing magic, which is maybe the topic for another video some other time. But Austin, he kind of created a more modern view of sigil magic, and we've seen sigils before in ancient magic. Sigils have been used as a symbolic way of encoding a deeper meaning. A sigil is like a symbol, and symbols ultimately are ways of conveying meaning. So a sigil is like that, but it's more of a direct transformation of a desire into a symbol. Spare really believed that the only thing that prevents us from achieving anything that we want and having anything that we desire is our own beliefs that we can't have that stuff. So Spare became kind of fascinated with the idea of destroying belief, and the belief was really the one thing that holds us back. Spare, like a lot of magicians of the time, were kind of coming up around the same time as the popularity of psychology and psychiatry. So his understanding of the way that sigils work is by implanting the desire into the subconscious and allowing the subconscious to do the work, since it was the conscious mind that actually held the limiting beliefs. So creating a sigil to Spare was kind of a way of creating a message to our subconscious, where our conscious mind would perhaps say, oh, I want that thing, but I can't have it. It's too good for me, or it's unachievable, or it's not realistic. The subconscious mind has none of those limiting beliefs. And so what we do is we take those desires and we turn them into something that the subconscious mind recognizes, understands, and then creates. But the conscious mind is out of it, doesn't have any idea of what's happening. So that's the idea of a sigil. There's really not too much more complicated about it. And there's so many different ways of creating sigils. It's become popularized in no small part thanks to Lieber Null and the work of Peter Carroll, and has spun out into many different advanced types of sigil magic, from shoaling and robo-fishing to different types of sigilization and different ways of empowering and charging those sigils. So I want to hop into it, and I'm going to try and stick as close as I can to my understanding of what is described in the Book of Pleasure by Austin Spare, because I think this is fundamentally, it kind of captures the heart of sigil magic, in that it really shouldn't be dogmatic. It shouldn't be wrought. It should be an easy and fun process. So let's dive right in and make a sigil.
There are three primary steps to any sigil magic working. First, we need to create a sentence of desire. This means we need to phrase our desire in the form of a clear and understandable sentence. Next, we need to convert that sentence into a symbol. This process is sometimes called sigilization. Finally, we need to sync that sigil into the subconscious mind. This is a process that is sometimes called empowering the sigil or charging the sigil.
So the first thing we need to do is select a suitable desire. Picking a desire can be anything, really, and I encourage you to get experimental with it. But a good starting desire is something that you would maybe create an affirmation about. I don't want to limit the idea of sigil magic, and I know a lot of people use sigil magic to really affect the world around them. But I think it's easiest to start with maybe something internal, since we're kind of dealing with the psycho-magical idea of the subconscious. So if you believe that your subconscious mind can change the world around you, then do a sigil about that. But if you struggle with coming up to that belief that, oh, if I just have my subconscious believe that I'll find $1,000, then that will happen, then start with something that you do believe your subconscious mind can do. And I think a lot of people do believe that my subconscious mind can make me more confident, make me more active, help me get over a bad habit. So try something. I always recommend keeping the desire phrase in the positive in the same way you would with an affirmation. So I wouldn't say I'm not shy as my affirmation. I would say I am confident. So for the sake of this video, let's do a simple one, an achievable one. Let's say this video gets many views. I think that it's very tempting to put a number to these things, to say this video gets 1,000 views, or to say I find $1,000. I actually think it's better to leave the number open-ended. You may limit yourself actually by saying I find $1,000. It could have been 2,000 or 10,000 if you just say I am taken care of financially, or I get a financial boon, or whatever it is that you need. I also recommend not doing magic around money, but we can get into that another time. I'd say if you want the money so you can go on a trip, just do the magic to get the trip. Just say I'm where I need to be. Don't worry about the money, because I think that's another thing that Austin would consider a limiting belief, or that Spare would consider a limiting belief. I call him Austin like I'm his friend, but really his name is Austin Osmond Spare, and we should treat him with a bit of respect. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and switch the camera angles, and we'll take a look at what I'm doing to actually sigilize the desire. The first place I like to start is by writing out the intention. We've talked a bit about a good intention. And for this case, we're going to do something like this video gets many views. I think this is a positive one because it's open-ended enough to not be limiting. It's focused, and it's kind of in the present moment. It's not something like in the distance. From here, we basically, okay. So from here, I like to do a process that's similar to what Spare does in his Book of Pleasures. So he actually starts by breaking this into a couple phrases. So we can start by sigilizing the term "this video." So let's separate that. Now we're going to take the letters from this video and turn it into a symbol. So we can get rid of any duplicates. So we only need one I, THISVDEO. And then I like to start with a good shape like this V. We need an H. We can drop this line down here and make a T. And that T can be condensed into an I. We need a D, an E. Look, this I can also become an E. And then this D here, we already have that O. And I think that's it. So this one is pretty clear. It can sometimes take a couple tries to find a good condensation, but I sort of like this shape here. So let's do this gets many views.
Okay, the next thing you want to do is repeat the process for the second component in the sentence. You'll notice that I've already used a couple of these letters in the previous symbol. So we can go ahead and remove the unnecessary E and other characters that are already used in the symbol.
So now the next thing we want to do is kind of combine these two shapes together. And again, there's no hard science to this, but typically I like to condense these shapes as much as I can. So I actually see that we have this kind of, and we have the I here, but we can kind of condense these shapes into, this is the M and the W and the Y. We can drop this down into our D here, complete our A. Why don't we stick the S right in here? And this is a little long. I kind of want to split this up, and let's take this shape and put one on top of the other. I think that's a real pleasing sigil design to my eye. So let's take this kind of slanted M shape, and you'll notice that I'm getting a little more relaxed every time I draw this. I'm wanting to make this kind of abstracted away as much as I can from the original meaning. So I want it to feel sort of loose. So this is kind of, I like this shape here. So now the next thing we want to do is I like to kind of relax it even more. So I see the big shapes here. We have a long line and a squiggle, kind of this 6. We have here, let's bring this down more. Yeah, I think this is kind of getting there. I wonder if we can maybe connect them here instead. Let's see what that looks like. So let's start with this H, this I shape. And remember, this is an art and a science, but don't get too distracted by trying to be clean. The important thing is that it's a satisfying shape for you at the end. And I think this S, instead of it being in here, I think this will give me some nice symmetry if I just connect those like that. Now this is a nice looking sigil. I like what we have here. So I'm going to say this is what I want to be going for. So once I've decided on my final sigil, I like to transfer it to a clean piece of paper so I can just see it on its own, away from the path that led me there. And again, I try and be clean if I can, but it's not the most important thing. And there it is. Let's connect these lines here. I think you'll find shapes that you like. And it's okay to make them more straight and organized, or to even make it more loose and more flowing if that's your style. Like another version of this sigil that could be that I could do, or anyone if they so choose, is to see it as more of an impressionistic, like there's a wiggle, there's a dot, this sharp shape, and something goes through like that. So you see we can have more of an impressionistic version of this sigil as well. And in fact, it's good to draw it. You see, I noticed there's this little thing there. So I think it's good to draw a sigil a couple of times. Learn the sigil, let it get comfortable with you, and let it become its own shape. All of these things are ultimately, it's the same sigil, it's the same meaning, and as long as my subconscious mind can grasp it, that's what matters. The next part of making this sigil work for you is to implant it into your subconscious. The way that Spare talked about doing this is by creating vacuousy in our brains, or creating a space or an emptiness in our brains and allowing this shape to fall into the space. So he suggests many different ways. He's very casual about this process. He says you can do this through meditation, you can do this by playing a bunch of tennis, or by doing other things that you could do with another consenting adult. You can even do this on your own. There's definitely a lot of contemporary magicians who swear by the moment of orgasm, if YouTube won't demonetize me for saying so. But that's a great moment of vacuous space in which to allow this shape to fall into. The way that Spare talks about it is pretty casual, so don't feel like there's a right way or a wrong way to do this. And I've heard many magicians do this in many different ways. The important thing is that you're only thinking about the shape, and that the shape is what becomes implanted in your subconscious. So some people have suggested putting the sigil away for some time until you forget what the initial desire even was. But Spare seems to not really care too much about this. So find a way that works for you, and you don't have to have it be dogmatic or special. This can be as easy as just having this shape. Doodle it. Get familiar with it. Think about it while you take a long walk. There's many different ways and different things you can do with this sigil, but know that this sigil is a tool. In the same way that a wand or a magical dagger or a pentacle can be a tool for a ritual, this sigil can now be a tool for you to achieve what you want to achieve. One of the easier ways you can do this is by placing this sigil in front of you and sitting into a deep meditation if you're capable of meditating to a place where you feel that you can empty your mind of thoughts. Just allow yourself and your mind to settle and to focus on the shape. Another way you can do this is to simply place this sigil in an inconspicuous but still visible place. So maybe write it on a Post-it note and stick it on your bathroom mirror so that it becomes like a note that we forget about. If you were to ever write something on a sticky note and leave it where you're supposed to see it, you'll realize how quickly you just kind of gloss over it. That means that your subconscious has already kind of ingested that material. Or you can do this as simply as bringing yourself to climax and allowing your vision, your gaze to fall upon the symbol. And at the moment of climax, there should be an opening where it can fall into the subconscious. Experiment with this and have fun with it. I think that sigil work is a really useful tool for a modern magician who maybe doesn't have the time to do more ceremonial magic or anything like that. And sigils ultimately are the most creative expression of our desires and of our true will. What I just showed here today is only the way that I've done sigils, the way that my understanding of Spare's version of sigils, but there's so many different ways of doing this. Have fun with it. Remember that a sigil is ultimately just a symbol that represents your desire. You don't have to do it with language. If you're more of a pictorial thinker, then get creative with pictures, and you can do it that way. I know it may seem like I'm glossing over the charging part, but really it's not about the symbol. The symbol doesn't need the charge, okay? The symbol needs to enter your mind. I think a lot of people think that they need to somehow charge this symbol and imbue it with power, and that's really something else entirely. And we can talk about that in the future, about servitors and other types of astral entities, but this is really not about the sigil. The sigil should be something that enters your subconscious. So allow the sigil to be something familiar, casual, and fun. Just in the same way that you don't think too much about the socks that you're wearing, keep the sigil in your subconscious, in your loosely held grip of the mind, and allow it to just sink in there. And by the time you've forgotten about it, I think you'll see that the desire has already been granted. So this is a great technique, and I hope you try it. So that's all I've got today. Please let me know in the comments any suggestions that you have for sigils. If you've done this, does it work? Do you like it? If you try the technique I showed here today, let us know your results in the comments. And please let me know other topics that you'd like me to cover. This is kind of a new experiment for me, but I'm very excited to be exploring some of these new realms with you all. Please keep seeking, and I'll keep seeking as well. So I'll see you along the path, everyone. Thank you. Bye.